Welcome to Mind and Soul Matters. We're delighted to share with you again another special presentation from a live forum. It is part of a series of live talks organised in collaboration between Mind and Soul Matters and Melville Baha'i Community to discuss issues around mental health in our society. I will leave the introduction of our presenter to Dr. Dina Ashurian, MC of the forum. Enjoy this very interesting and informative presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dina, and I'll be your MC for this afternoon. As far as acknowledgements, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on Noongar land and to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land we're meeting on and their elders, past and present, and to their culture. Today's event is part of a series of mental health and well-being forums where we all explore relevant topics with the help of expert panel members. Baha'i communities all over the world are working to engage in social discourses on topics that are impacting our communities and the society at large. As the global population continues to age, there is a lot of focus on declining physical health. However, often a critical aspect of overall well-being, mental health, in the older age group is overlooked. Older adults face unique challenges, such as retirement, bereavement, grieving of the loss of friends and family, declining physical health, and increased isolation, all of which can contribute to mental health conditions. Whilst these issues are common, they are not an inevitable part of aging, and proactive measures can promote mental well-being in later life. So we will look forward to hearing some of the insights from our fabulous panelists today. Ms. Gabriela Di Perna. Gabriela is a health service manager finalizing her PhD. I just found out that it's literally finalized and being handed in about 3 weeks in the area of social sciences at Griffith University. Her expertise and the focus of her PhD is on loneliness prevention and social group belonging in older adults in the intergenerational context. What an interesting topic to be researching, and we're looking forward to hearing some of your findings and your insights on the topic. Please welcome Gabriela.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today. In my PhD study, I was trying to look at the root causes of loneliness. So how does loneliness actually happen? How does that take place? And what can we do? So my findings are from a qualitative study. That means I was talking to older adults and interviewing them. So it's about their actual experiences. So let's look at loneliness and why loneliness is a big deal in Australia. So why is it a public health issue? Why do we talk about it as if it was? At this point in time, 1 in 6 Australians feel lonely. And for older Australians, it's actually 1 in 4. And it's only predicted to rise. Loneliness is predicted to rise. And it's not just about feeling down or feeling sad. It's linked to serious health issues, and we've already touched on those before. So dementia, stroke, depression, anxiety, these are all linked to loneliness. And the impact on loneliness on our health is actually similar to smoking or being obese. It's really severe. So what exactly is loneliness? Let's look at that first, because there's also a lot of misconceptions in people. Loneliness isn't being alone. And it's about feeling alone even when I am surrounded by a multitude of people. Described in the literature as a state of mind, it's also described as a feeling of emptiness, definitely a very negative experience for the individual. In recent years, loneliness has been treated like a byproduct. We always talk about mental health, we talk about physical health, and then somehow loneliness gets added on in the end. It's only lately that it's been coming up as something to actually take seriously, something to prevent or treat. Loneliness is basically a lack of our expectation for social connection. So when we have a certain desire for what we would like to experience in our social connections, and they aren't being met. That is when we experience loneliness. Some researchers call it a social warning sign, like pain is a warning sign when we're hurting, or hunger when we need to eat. Loneliness is a warning sign that we need to seek connection with others. So what can be done about loneliness? First, we need to realize that humans need connection. I think sometimes we forget. We think we can do it, we can do it because we're being taught, and social media often is trying to signal it's all about you. And if you only want, you can achieve it. It's all about individual self-help in every area of your life. And from what I've been seeing and hearing from older adults, that approach just does not work. So to keep it simple, findings from my study concern that loneliness and belonging are opposite. And belonging to social groups involves the relationship between the individual and the individual feeling belonging to this group. Like you today, you are here because you somehow have a link to this center of learning. What does it mean to you? Do you belong here? These are all the kinds of ideas that you need to think about. Who do you feel belonging to? Research shows that meaning in life is important, and that our brains can't actually maintain living that is purposeless. We seek meaning by default as human beings. And if we don't experience that, we eventually fall into something that is unhealthy. So how can we live a life that leads to belonging, and how can we prevent loneliness? I was wondering, how does it happen? How do I arrive at meaningful belonging? Which took me in the literature to look at the importance of social identity. So social identity is how group membership influences someone's sense of self. So how do I understand myself in the group, and how is this group becoming part of me? I take this Baha'i Center of Learning as an example because you are here and many of you are members, I'm assuming. But what does being in this center mean to you? And what do you mean to the other people in this room? That is what belonging feels like. Social identity helps individuals mentally incorporate who they are and the groups they feel belonging to. For example, I am a wife, I am a daughter, I'm a mother, I'm a PhD candidate about to finish, I'm a Christian, and you might be a Baha'i Center member, you might be part of a book club, you might be part of your local tennis club. All of these things shape your identity, your social identity of how you feel about yourself and where you feel belonging to. So your personal identity and your social identity is very much linked. When I was looking in my study, I was looking at what is it that drives us to come here, for example, or what drives you to go to your book club? What makes you want to go? The feeling of being needed and being valued is very important for older adults. This is what my study showed. They see themselves as responding to the needs of the younger generation. This was in my particular context of intergenerational practice. But it was a purposeful experience for them, good for their well-being, and they felt energized by the interconnections that they experienced. They felt relevant, they felt connected, and they felt actively participating in something, contributing to something that was bigger than just themselves, a bigger purpose. So an older adult's perception of their social identity and their perceived effect on the future generation in a social group are very linked. So for many older adults, legacy and what is your part in someone else's future is very important. That is one thing that I've learned from my study. I want to share with you a quote of one of my study participants, Flora. She said, "I feel more valued, more important to myself. I'm not worried about being important to other people, but I'm feeling that I have more value in myself. And I suppose that then carries across into my identity and how I feel." So while Flora was focusing on the younger generation and how she could contribute, she felt a personal satisfaction to herself the importance to herself because of what she was doing. It felt good. It felt that it was positively affecting her identity. And so this process of forming social identity is driven, especially in older adults, by this desire to share the values, the life experiences that you have, the wisdom that you've gained with the next generation, which can also be understood as legacy in form of values. Some people only think of legacy in form of money, but legacy is values-based as well, can be values-based. So I concluded in my study that social identity and social group belonging are deeply interconnected and grounded in the shared values and the desire to leave legacy. In essence, belonging is achieved through social identity formation and feeling united with a group, a social group. So let me introduce just one more concept, and bear with me, I understand it's sometimes a bit theoretical, but I'm trying to pull it together. So if we recap and we see that meaningful belonging to social groups like this one means connecting with others in a meaningful way beyond ourselves. This means that we must focus on others. We must focus away from ourselves. Focusing on ourselves is where this loneliness happens in the first place. So meaningful belonging is seen as a legacy lever. It is driving a need beyond personal fulfillment. It is driving a need to contribute to something bigger than you are. It's marked by kindness towards others. So what I saw in the older adults, they were actually having more than empathy. They were actively showing compassion. They were actively being there for the younger generations. They wanted to help. They wanted to mentor them. They wanted to create belonging. And that to them was, in turn, meaningful to them. So compassion to me is the key here. And it shifts the focus away from the self and onto the others. The literature describes compassion as essential for authentic human connection, as a foundation of meaningful existence. And it's linked to increased well-being and a sense of purpose as well. So what I found is that when older adults pass on their values through compassion, love, and respect, they engage with the future generation because they say to them indirectly, you're valuable. I want to help you. I see you. I want to share with you what I know, what I've experienced, the mistakes I have done in my life. I want you to learn from them. As such, meaningful belonging in social groups that are intergenerational is only possible if older adults have this compassionate heart and mindset. And social identities of older adults and younger children can be united in collective goals if we truly have that compassion driving us to want to interconnect to others in social groups. So what does this mean? How do we get from loneliness to meaningful belonging? My findings show that compassion for others is embedded in the social identity. And compassion is like a lever. So if I have loneliness on the one side, belonging to the other, social identity is what happens in between. And it's driven by compassion. If I don't feel that you are a part of me through this group that we share, I won't feel belonging. I can go to the bridge club for 5 years and never talk to anyone. I can never create a connection with somebody if I don't feel that there is something actually driving me to want to link to this person, wanting to help them, wanting to know who they are, wanting to connect. Slowly then, belonging happens by sharing who we are with the other. How do we prevent loneliness? Ideally, we seek to connect when we first feel that first inkling of, social hunger. I'm spending too much time by myself. I need to go. I need to find something where I can connect with others. Because if you do, it appears from my findings that it will protect you from loneliness. If you find social group belonging and you are set in there, you know who you are because of the memberships that you hold, you won't feel lonely. You know where you go. You know where you belong. You know who you are. When you are lonely, so for lonely individuals to actually find that connection again in social groups is much harder to do. It is possible. So I've spoken to many older adults that they said, I was lonely. I realized I was lonely. So I knew I had to do something about it. And it started by showing interest in others, then somehow feeling connection, then feeling belonging. And then somehow, these older adults shared with me the experiences that they had with these young children. There was a 70-year-old woman that walked with difficulty into the room, and I saw her on the floor pretending to be a serpent because the little boy next to her wanted her to show her what a serpent moves like. So you can do so many things when you do them for someone else. You're willing to do so much more for others when it comes from the right mind or heart set. Let's call it that. What is the key? From what I found, it is the focus on others. We need to focus on others. In a society that constantly emphasizes self-help, and I said this before, it's a new way of thinking. I am suggesting that an individual can't help themselves. When they are lonely, we need to realize the need that we have for others. And we need to start to focus our attention away from myself, from my pain, from my isolation, from my loneliness. As hard as it is, people have described it as a cave. They said, I'm going into my cave and I don't know how to go out of it. I don't know how to leave it. So sometimes we need compassionate others that will take us with them, to reconnect. Some people can't do it by themselves. So if you see people that are like this, as Dr. Hugo was also speaking about, notice and have that compassion and be actively helping, getting them back to connection. A desire to contribute to something greater than we are. That is when meaningful belonging takes place. When the point where we see others as part of us. And that happens in social groups and can happen in social groups like this one. So through my study, I developed a model. I called it the connectedness continuum. I would have liked to show you, but it's easier this way, talking about it, I hope. But I've actually really tried to map it. How does the journey take place from loneliness through being interested, to being connected, to being meaningfully connected? And how can we take people by the hand and show them how to move towards meaningfully belonging? What does this mean practically? What can be done better in our communities? I think we need to recognize and value the contributions older adults can make to mitigate loneliness and promote social identity formation. If we facilitate opportunities for older adults to take on meaningful roles, like that of a mentor, of a teacher, and we recognize that older adults actually seek to leave value-based legacies and create opportunities for them to model and share these with the younger generations, I think we can do. It's a good start. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So much to learn there. Thinking about belonging and social connectedness. Whilst you were speaking, it reminded me of a podcast I recently heard. The U.S. Surgeon General actually did a podcast on loneliness and how it's actually become an epidemic in the United States. So I invite you to maybe look that up because it really is becoming a global epidemic. We think we're very connected with social media and our phones and devices, but we actually are becoming more and more inwardly looking. So thank you for your very insightful presentation. Thank you, Gabriela. So friends, this is now time for us to open the floor to questions.
The thing that's in my mind is ageism. There isn't an assumption that older people have a great deal to offer. And I'm dealing with a family member who's having great difficulty with a younger person in the family. And I'm very concerned that all he wants to do is correct her and give advice. So going back to compassion, taking in the concept of the problems of ageism, how would you help facilitate, what can you say to help facilitate that connection, intergenerational connection?
Again, from the older adults I spoke to, there were some that said, I I've never had children. I don't have grandchildren. I have no idea how to even interact with this younger generation. I don't understand how they speak. I find it very odd the way they think. But I realized that they are the future. And I think, and I touched on it, but if you can find something that is of a common value, a common ground, something where you realize the common humanity in us, that we can't exist without you. You are the next generation. And all we can do is to guide that, and we can influence that to the best of our ability, and to create that experience in the younger person as well, that they can trust the advice, the wisdom, the guidance of the older adult, because they mean well. They want the best for them. They have only the most positive in mind for them. They want them to succeed. I think it's sometimes comes back to trust. Where is the relationship at? Because it sounds to me like there is a breakdown. So I think perhaps it's worth looking at building that trust, and then the communication, generational wisdom on both sides will flow.
Accepting that you have a loneliness issue is something very hard for people to accept or comprehend. And I think, like alcoholism, you don't accept it. How do you actually try to encourage people to see, if you can understand that there is loneliness in your life, that you can seek assistance?
So I think, as you said, one thing is to accept it, and that can be dangerous, because then you identify with loneliness, and then you have made it part of who you are, you, the lonely person. And I've seen when people spoke about it, there's a real difference. Some people say, I feel lonely. I don't want to feel this way. That's not me. I'm not, I'm a social person, but I feel lonely. I want to get away from it. That's good. That's healthy. Those are the people that work hard at finding a way out of loneliness. It's the people, I think you were mentioning, that go quiet, that withdraw, that go into the cave, as some of the people I spoke to said. They are then difficult to pull out again. They are the ones that then get lost in that cave and forget that they had a life beyond it. That they used to like to socialize in different ways, that they used to like to experience certain things with certain community groups that now they don't. So I think the first thing is, if somebody tells you, why aren't you coming anymore? Really check your own mind, check your own heart. Why am I not coming anymore? And don't make excuses. This is something else. Older adults said to me, oh, well, it's so hard to get there. And then I don't know where to park. And then by the time I get out of the car, and then what if I'm late? And then it's late at night and I don't like driving in the dark and there's nobody to take me home. And I don't want to ask anyone to drop me either, because then I don't want to feel like I'm a burden. So there's all these kinds of thoughts going on about the actual issue where I think sometimes, and again, I'm from Germany, but sometimes it's good to just say what you need. And sometimes people will be very happy to help you when they know what you actually need, because then we can all help each other. So I think supporting each other when it comes from a general, again, heartfelt compassion, and that was touched on by you so much, that's the way to live, and that way you stay healthy, because you want to help others, others want to help you, assume they want to help you. That is the natural way to be. We're made to be interconnected.
These forums are really about improving our mental health literacy around particular topics. So promoting mental health literacy among older adults, their caregivers, and healthcare providers can help reduce the stigma and improve outcomes for all different populations, but in today's case, older adults. I'd like to say a big thank you to the Baha'i community of Melville for hosting today, our expert panelists, our audiovisual guys, and the Mental Health Forum's organizing task force.
If you found today's episode useful, remember to share an episode with a friend and follow Mind and Soul Matters on your preferred podcast platform and on social media. Look forward to your company next time on Mind and Soul Matters.